Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a weird one, and that happens to be Impossamole. Now, before I explain this game, I should give a little bit of backstory of what the hell Impossamole is. So Impossamole actually belongs into a series called the Monty Mole series, and it came from the company TurboGrafx, which was created by Peter Harrop. And there's been a couple of games within this series, like there's Wanted Monty Mole, then there's Monty is Innocent, Monty on the Run, then there's Moley Christmas, and lastly there's also some weird German sounding name that I can't pronounce. All these games were pretty much exclusive to the computer systems like the ZX Spectrum, but of course there were some that were on the Commodore 64 and the MSX, and one of them actually got a release on the Famicom Disk System. And there's plenty of other computer systems that it's been on, but the only other one that got a home port was Impossamole, and this one was on the TurboGrafx 16, and it was released in 1991 in North America. But the original computer system ones were released in 1990, so it only took a year. But weirdly enough, this one was actually not developed by TurboGrafx, it was actually developed by Core Design. And this one is also like the rest of them, it's a platformer. But this time Monty Mole looks like a superhero rather than his usual look with the monocle and stuff. I guess monocles aren't American enough. So anyways, let's move on and start talking about the very little story that this one has. So there's a group of aliens that want Monty Mole to collect some scrolls for them, and yeah, that's it. So nothing much I can say there, but whatever, it's a thing I guess. So for now, let's talk about the gameplay. So it's a side-scrolling platformer, and you gotta look for scrolls, and there's 3 of them in each stage, and after you get all the scrolls, you just have to make it to the end and move on to the next stage. Sounds pretty simple enough. And your only means of defense in this game is that you gotta kick some enemies until they turn into a box, and then when they're in the box form, you gotta kick them into the air, and when you catch them, you can actually throw the box at the enemies. Seems like a lot of work just to take care of at least one enemy or two. And speaking of the enemies in this game, they really respond really fast. Hell, I've actually had like 7 ninja mice like chasing after me when there's normally only supposed to be like 3 or 4. And other than collecting the scrolls, you also collect a bunch of other items for points. And all the items that you collect in this game really don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, okay, let's take this for an example. So in the Mario games, you collect coins, in the Sonic games, you collect rings, and then in the Donkey Kong games, you collect bananas. But in Impossamole, you collect tusks, umbrellas, teacups, Buddha statues, some weird faucet-looking thing, and a few other random shit. So basically, Monty Mole is indeed a hoarder. But thankfully in this game, you can actually take multiple hits in the game. In fact, your health is not indicated with hearts, it's indicated by your face. And the empty parts are indicated by your face wrapped up in a mummy bandages, which is actually kind of funny. Now, one last thing I should mention about the gameplay is that the level design in this game is actually kind of interesting, where yes, you are trying to get from one end of the screen to the other one, but since you are trying to look for scrolls and various other things, you gotta go look into certain spots. Like, sometimes you have to find them at like really high places, or sometimes you gotta fight them like in a really low spot, or sometimes they can just be really well hidden. So I will say, the general level design is actually quite good. But when it comes to the overall gameplay, it's pretty fair stuff. I mean, it's a platformer where you collect things and try to get to the other side. That's really all there is to it. So that seems all well and good, but now let's start talking about the controls. And the controls in this one are pretty piss poor. So first of all, moving around is pretty slippery. It's nothing too major, but it is noticeable and it can be a little bit annoying. But however, the kicking is actually a whole lot worse. So not only does it feel a little bit delayed, but at the same time, the hit detection in this game is fucking awful. And as I said about trying to attack enemies in this game, where you gotta kick them a certain amount of times, then you gotta kick the box, and you gotta wait until the box hits on your head, and then you gotta throw it at them, and of course when you throw it at them, it happens to go in an arc angle. So yeah, try pulling off all that with a pretty dinky kick, especially when you have like a million enemies flying at you. So yeah, all that is pretty weak sauce, but thankfully at least the button layout is pretty easy, but that's kinda hard to fuck up with a TurboGrafx 16 controller. Also, one last thing I should mention is that you can't throw the box in thin air because, that would have made things too easy. So overall, the controls in this game just really need a lot of work, and it's fucking frustrating. And now, as for the graphics in this game, they're kinda sorta mediocre. So meaning that they're not bad, but they're also not really good either. There's nothing really much that stands out within this game other than the fact that your character is a mole wearing a superhero outfit. But when it comes to the enemy designs, there are some of them that are kinda funny looking, and some that suit the level. So of course you got some ninja mice, a shrunken samurai dude, flying paper origamis, an old wanderer dude, and rocks that fall down on you that blend in with the background. Oh, and because this is a Japan setting, of course you always have to have that one weird fucked up enemy like a dude that looks like a humanoid frog. Like, what the whoa, yeah, that's right, it's Japan, of course. But then you get enemies that don't even make sense with this background, like, you got a camera with legs because, that makes so much sense. And then there's a boxer guy that doesn't even look like he would be a part of this setting. So it kind of seems they just threw out a bunch of random things and put them into one area. And I find that the game's color palette really isn't the greatest looking. I mean, it is like kind of sort of bright and colorful, but at the same time it's kind of a little bit grainy. Honestly, I've seen a lot better looking games on the TurboGrafx than this. So as for the overall graphics, there's nothing much I can really say here. It just looks like a very generic looking game, nothing more, nothing less. And now, as for the music in this one, for the most part, I do find that the way that the songs go are fairly good, but it's the sound quality of some of the songs are just kinda shitty. And I will say, the sound quality within most TurboGrafx games usually sound really good. So just to give out some examples, so you have games like Blazing Lasers, Bonk's Adventure, Legendary Axe, and finally, one of my all-time favorite ones would have to be the soundtrack for Devil's Crush. And I think they all sound really fucking good, but as for this game though, like I said, some of the songs do sound fine the way they are, but the sound quality of them just could have been done way better. Like that title screen, for an example, sounds like a pretty bad NES song. But to be fair, like I said, it's not all bad, because I do find that some of the other stages do have some pretty decent songs, but, for the most part, I can't say it's like anything super amazing or anything great or even all that memorable. So the music in this one is, again, I'd say it is kind of mediocre-ish, where it's not terrible or even all that good. So now, if you want to go out and buy this game, as to be expected from a lot of TurboGrafx 16 games, it's not really all that cheap, but it's also not as expensive as I was thinking it would have been. So you can get a loose hue card for $24.99 or even one for $30, and then you can get some complete ones for at least $50 or $60. So as for a loose hue card, that's actually not too bad considering the system that it's on, but of course, because this game is not all that good, I can say that this game is definitely not worth $20. At least if you're planning on playing it, that is. And also, just like a lot of TurboGrafx 16 games in general, they're not all that easy to find. So I guess that's not a surprise, but either way, this game is just totally not worth the price. Unless you want to own every single North American TurboGrafx 16 game, then in that case, well, good luck. So now, as for my overall thoughts on this game, is that this game is impossible to play and have a good time. Yeah, that was definitely one of the worst puns I've ever done. But anyways, this game kinda sucks. And of course, my main reason for saying that this game kinda sucks is that the control for this game is just so bad. Like, the walking could have been adjusted a little bit more, but that fucking kick is just such bullshit. So of course, they really need to adjust that one a whole lot. But other than that, this at least could have been an above average game. I mean, of course, I don't expect it to be like super duper amazing, but it could have been at least like a decent game. Since I do kinda like the level design of it and the fact that you have to look for secrets and such. Also, the music and the graphics just could have been done a little bit better. Even though I think that's just minor things in comparison to controls, but still, I think they just could have been done a little bit better. So it's really hard for me to recommend this game if you want to play a really obscure TurboGrafx 16 game. But to be on a positive note, I will say this game is definitely better than Darkwing Duck and JJ and Jeff, but not by a whole lot. So it is on the more turdy side of it, but not completely turds, but still pretty close enough to being turds. So there's really nothing much else I can say about this generic platformer. But I guess I could say that I really do hope that the other versions of this game, like the one on the Commodore 64 and the Amiga and such, I really do hope those versions are at least decent. And I also hope that the older games in this series are at least good. I mean, people were buying them for a reason. So even though I can't comment on those games, I will at least say that they are probably worth a try, as long as you do have an emulator for like the ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64 and whatnot. But as for the turbo version of this game, I just really didn't like it at all. Such a shame. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if Monty Mole from the Super Mario Bros. Series can probably kick this Monty Mole's ass. So with that being said, this game kinda sucks. So anyways, that'll be the end of this review, so thank you for watching and commenting, and of course, have yourselves a really good day.